Well, I just got paid by YouTube, so I guess it's time to look back at 2023 and into the future. Cheers! Welcome back, everybody, to me doing the one thing I only do once per year, and sometimes not even that, because it is already 2024. Although from the fireworks that my neighbors are still letting off, you wouldn't guess so. So yeah, let's have that thing that everyone has already done, which is looking back at what happened in 2023. Maybe talk about a bunch of books I liked. Maybe talk about what I did last year, how the usual stuff. And then we'll do the thing that you, comrades, have all been looking for. We'll reveal the first 20% of the upcoming 5 year plan. And I'm excited for that. So, you know, grab a beer, do some morning drinking like me, and let's talk about all of that. Let's start with the stats and numbers and stuff like that, all right? Um, as I just said, I this morning got a message from Google that I have finally reached the threshold for my first AdSense payout. Now, that sounds more technical than you might think, but as you may remember, last year I reached 1,000 subscribers at, well, New Year's Eve, exactly. So it's interesting to see what happens with that. You know, you can get your channel monetized, which is why you've obviously all seen ads, click them away, or use an ad blocker, which, is fine, don't worry. Um, I don't care. But it means that, I get money from YouTube for ads. How that works is that you have an AdSense account on Google, and there your money slowly collects. And once you've reached a certain payout threshold, which is when they, 70 euros for me in this case, then Google actually sends you that money. From the fact that this happened today, you can exactly figure out what I made. I get 73 euros and 58 cents from Google, which means that I make roughly 6 euros per month for a video, which means I'll get another payout roughly the same time next year. Isn't that fun? Obviously, I will not have anything out of that money. I thought about taking that money and buying, spending it on lottery tickets to make money out of YouTube in a more realistic way. But because of my current situation, I won't have anything out of that money. It'll go straight to my bank account, and there it'll probably be deducted from the unemployment money that I currently get from the state. So it feels sort of empty, but I guess the German taxpayers can be happy because I've just made you 73 euros and 58 cents. Great, isn't it? The other side of that is, of course, what happened with subscribers last year. And there I have great news, because if subscriber growth continues as forcefully as it has over 2023, I will reach 2,000 subscribers in the year 2027, because this channel gained 250 subscribers last year. So every 4 years from now on, we'll get another 1,000 subscribers. So yeah, really, the sky's the limit, because as we all know, I'm immortal. So let's check this out in like 100 years or so. I think that makes sense, right? Anyway, so that is, of course, just numbers, and I tried not to look at them. They're obviously incredibly frustrating whenever I look at what other people in a book adjacent YouTube sphere are doing, how their channels are growing, how their numbers are rising. I'm clearly doing it incredibly wrong. And yeah, that's kind of what I want to talk about today, how I'm doing it wrong and why I continue to do it even wronger. Is that a word? Wronger? Wrong and wronger? I don't know. You people who know language can tell me. Anyway, let's talk about what happened last year and how I made these 250 subscribers and these incredible amount of 73 euros and 58 cents through high quality content or something like it. I think 2023 was a bit of a weird transitional year for me. When I look back in 2021, which is, when the channel fully started, I talked a lot about Mlazen, and that was great. Now in 2022, I talked about Wheel of Time for the first part of the year, and then kind of got lost in the weeds for a while. And then I talked about Dan Simmons for a couple of months and really hated his stuff for obvious reasons, I thought, or at least reasons I thought I made very clear. And then I didn't know what to do during 2023. Sort of. I didn't do, the usual stuff. I talk about books that I read from time to time. I have definitely not done like actual book reviews. I'm not good with book reviews, and I don't think I will do any of those in the future either, at least not the spoiler free kind. I prefer to do what I call a discussion, which is I give a quick synopsis and then talk about 2 to 5 aspects of a book that have really intrigued me, or that I think are worth talking about. I feel at the end of the day, these are more productive videos. They bring you more and bring me more than just a spoiler free 5-minute video where I tell you that it has great character work and an amazing magic system and wonderful world building, and you're then left with, wondering what that actually means. I think these discussions bring you, have more substance in a lot of ways, and maybe in the future more people will actually, get something out of them, because that's, I mean, better than just another review in that regard. If I make a video about a book, you can assume I found something interesting in it. I've definitely read more books than I made videos last year, so there's that. So I did a bunch of those for books that just crossed my path, and I'm like, hey, I should probably talk about that because no one has done so forever, which is why I talked about something like Hope Merley's Blood in the Mist, and I talked about A Voyage to Arcturus by David Lindsay, which are both, fantasy classics, but there's a surprisingly few videos about them on YouTube. Liam has talked about at least one of them, that being Voyage to Arcturus, and I'm pretty sure someone has talked about Blood in the Mist as well, but, there's stuff like that, and then there's, books that came out in 2024 or 2023 that I enjoyed and talked about a lot. These are obviously things like Camp Damascus by Chuck Tingle, and the new books by Lavi Tidar, and the new book from Nicola Griffith, and, a couple of these kind of new releases. Although generally I didn't talk about a lot of 2023 books last year, which is when Matt from Matt's Fantasy Book Reviews asked me about my favorite fantasy and science fiction novel published in 2023. I had a bit of a struggle because there weren't that many I actually read, which is why I settled on Hopeland, which I think is still an absolutely wonderful book and more people should read it. It's so underappreciated. It makes me go mad. It's got like 300 to 400 reviews, or like not reviews but ratings on Goodreads, which is like ridiculous for an author like Ian MacDonald. So I don't know. Go read that fucking book. Is my point here. So I did that, and then obviously that's why I kind of call it a transitional period. I did do the more the larger projects. I did 2 of those last year, and I think I'll do more of them in the future. So let's talk about those. The first one was, of course, the anti-Semitism in fantasy video, the long one. And now that's something I started working on in 2022 when I got really annoyed in a couple of group discussions and other Discord conversations and so forth about how people were incredibly willing to not see or unable to see things that I had identified as anti-Semitic tropes or structural anti-Semitism in a lot of fantasy works. And I felt that maybe it makes sense to actually explain the history of anti-Semitism so people can recognize these tropes and these themes and elements when they read fantasy or science fiction. So I started reading up a lot on, the topic, because I'm not an expert on anti-Semitism. I might be one of the most the most qualified now to talk about it within the fantasy book sphere, just by virtue of having read a couple of thousand pages on the subject. But that doesn't make me an expert or anything. But it's the best we got, I think. And that took me a while to actually get through. It ended up coming out in something like February, and from what I can tell, the people that actually watched it did get something out of it. So that's good. The numbers are not exactly insane. We'll talk about that in a moment as well. So the numbers are not insane. It's not, 10,000 people watched this video thing. Later this year, later 2023, when I talked about Patrick Rothfuss for like half an hour, that got way more views than like me talking about anti-Semitism or the Arthurian literature later on. So that's just something that I have to guess. I have to live with and reckon with, that if I make larger video projects, they are not necessarily going to do really well. There's a bunch of reasons why that may be. One is that maybe booktube audience is just not really interested in it. The other is that the way I'm presenting these things is just really boring and annoying, and no one likes my face, which is understandable. But it's somewhere in between those things, right? There's obviously space on YouTube for long video essays, but they are made with production values that I just don't have. I don't have anyone helping me with filming these things. I can't do proper editing because I'm blind. I can't afford to pay an editor, not even with those 73 euros and 58 cents. But, I can't do that. So there's very little I can do to make these videos more engaging than, me just sitting there and talking about stuff and sort of structuring it. I can't even, write a script and narrate a script with, a pleasing voiceover, because I can't read, as we have established. So there's limits to how I could make these things more interesting in a lot of ways. That's frustrating, because, obviously when you spend like 3 months making a video, people, and no one watches it, well, not no one, but like very few people watch it, or yeah, there's a level of frustration there. And that's certainly something I feel. I'd be lying if I said I wouldn't. It's something I've come to accept because I can't change it, for now at least. So I'll just have to live with it. I just think it's an important topic, and when I talk about stuff, I usually feel that people should think about it because it's important. It's not just not just something I enjoyed for 5 minutes. Those things I sometimes mention, but there's more at stake for me, at least, in something like this. Which brings us to, the idea of Sunday school, which I should probably pick up again. So I started a thing called Sunday School, where I thought I'll do like a video on Sundays where I talk about how I like different ways of reading fantasy. Now, there's a twofold thing with that, right? I'm definitely not an expert on reading fantasy. I've read a bit of fantasy over the years. I've read a bit of science fiction over the years. I've even read a couple of academic books on fantasy and the fantastic, stuff like that. But that doesn't make me an absolute expert. The thing, however, is nobody, with the possible exception of, I don't know, AP Canavan, the Critical Dragon, is an expert on reading fantasy on booktube. We're not. We may have qualifications in English literature, we may have qualifications in linguistics, we may have qualifications in philosophy, we may have all kinds of qualifications. We're not experts on reading fantasy. And the question is, do these actually exist? The answer is probably. It kind of depends on your definition of expert and expertise. My point, however, is that a lot of stuff, a lot of conversations about books, especially in the fantasy sphere, are full of terminology that we don't necessarily understand when we're using it. And a lot of our reading approaches are very, very one-dimensional. Yes, we say we're like mood readers. Yeah, we say we read for character, we read for themes. But what does that mean? Do we actually understand? And my goal, my goal with Sunday School was to maybe give me a way to, use the stuff that I've learned over the years and explain it and pretend to be, well, not an expert, but, play at pretending to be an expert, sort of. But also allow people that are, haven't had like 20 years of reading fantasy like me, or haven't had, the privilege to read academic texts on how we, engage with literature in general, how we do all the, to give people, a way in to maybe understand terminology, to learn different ways of reading books. Because I think the more like ways we have to do something, the more we get out of it, the more fun we can have with it, the more enjoyment we can get out of it, the more knowledge possibly we can get out of it, the more we can learn, the more we can do. And I'm in favor of that. So that's the idea behind Sunday School. And I started it, and it went really well. For the first 2 videos, I decided to go with the Guy Gavriel Kane novels that I wanted to read for a long time. And after I finished the Fionn Tapestry, I was like, well, these are good examples because they are all fairly well, they're well written, but they're still written in a way that makes it very easy to pick out one specific lens, one specific approach to reading fantasy, and exploring that in video length. So I did that, and then I got distracted. by none other than King motherfucking Arthur. See, part of that is, of course, the introduction of Arthurian legend, and then I said, like, well, I guess it makes sense to talk about Arthurian legends because they pop up in fantasy a lot of times, and they're an interesting way of how legends are used and abused and changed and twisted over the decades and centuries. I had previously read, a bunch of Arthurian stuff, including Thomas Mallory. So I kind of had a bit of a background in the field, and I'm like, well, let's make a video where I explain how mythology or legends in this case are changed over the years, and myth retellings are not so much about the actual story but more about like the time in which they are written. So when we encounter these, it may be helpful to look at what what an author is trying to say with material they can assume we are at least passingly familiar with. And I made a video about that, and it was like 40 minutes long. And then I wasn't really happy with it. And then I made another one. It was like 4 hours long. And that's the one that came out in July. That's the other large project I did last year. And I did enjoy it. I read a lot of Arthurian stuff for it. I read, academic texts on the history of the Arthurian legend, on different approaches through the centuries, on marriage and adultery and inheritance in 15th century England, and how that influenced Mallory's approach to Le Morte d'Arthur and stuff like that. I read an awful lot, is my point. And then I also read a bunch of different literary, retellings from the last century and a half, from Mark Twain all the way up to Spear by Nicola Griffith, which was the most recent one I read. And I made a long-ass video. And it did poorly. It did even worse than the anti-Semitism one, because apparently no one's really interested in 4 hours of King Arthur material. But I think it is the best, for now at least, the best video on Arthurian literature you're going to find on YouTube. So, I don't know, go watch it. Tell your family about it. I think it does have some actual merit. I'm really bad at, tooting my own horn, so to speak. I'm really bad at that, but I think it's probably the most ambitious thing I've done on YouTube so far, and it's, content-wise, the best thing I've done. Bar none. It's just really well-researched. Anyway, that's that. And then I did other stuff over the second half of the year, and then I got frustrated, and then I started reading Tad Williams, and then Tad Williams had to postpone the final book of The Last King of Ostenard, so my idea of reading all of Ostenard in one fell swoop kind of fell apart, which means we'll still have some videos coming up very soon about Last King of Ostenard material. And then I went into Drismas for reasons. Now, Drismas is finally over. I've read 13 R.A. Salvatore Drizzt novels, tried to explain what they do, why they are so popular, why they are actually really not that good, how they are sort of an essential part of fantasy literature because of their connection to Dungeons & Dragons tabletop role-playing games as tie-in products and so forth. I tried to do that. I hope it worked. I hope some of you enjoyed my suffering. I've always said I can only do one terrible book video series per year. We'll see if that holds for 2024, but that's something I did. And that's mostly it for 2023. Except for two things. The one thing is that I started doing the live streams, the monthly live streams. I really enjoy them. Recently, we've had some technical issues. I hope they're sorted. At least the sound stuff should be sorted out now. I should probably at some point switch from the really not that good StreamYard online program to just, I don't know, using OBS. There's issues with that are accessibility issues, and I'll continue struggling with those, so there's that. But I'll try to figure it out, and there will definitely be more monthly live streams. We'll see where that is going. I have some thoughts and ideas on that we'll talk about in the 2024 part of this video. The other thing is, of course, that out of me talking about Spear came a longer conversation with author Nicola Griffith. First, I talked about her other books, The Hild and Meanwood Meanwood came out last year. I talked about that in videos, and then we had a conversation live in December that I personally really, really enjoyed. And I hope some of you did enjoy it as well. and it's certainly something I can see myself doing more of. And just beyond anything, it just felt really good to have someone I respect this much acknowledge what I do here. It just felt good. That's my point. And I really enjoyed that, and I just wanted to mention that that was certainly one of the highlights of 2023 was me getting to have a conversation with someone this fascinating, this well, amazing in a lot of ways. It just felt good, is my point. Because collab-wise, 2023 was a poor year. And that's something, that's kind of where we'll leave it with 2023 analysis and whatnot. I survived, I did stuff. Let's talk about the first 20% of the next 5-year plan. I guess the goal is to have 1,500 subscribers at the end of the year. We'll see if that goes. I've seen other YouTubers that are roughly at the same count as me or slightly above already say that they want to reach 5,000 subscribers at the end of the year. I wish them luck. I do nothing else, but I doubt I'll reach 1,500 because life sucks. All right, let's talk about plans and ideas and general stuff before I leave this and I don't know, do something else. Reading plans. This will be the great Sanderson year. I've said it before. Here's how we'll do this. I will talk about Brandon Sanderson in a nuanced and detailed way. It may also be critical. So I've decided to read a selection of Cosmere novels. Some of these will be rereads, but they will be detailed, nuanced reads. I don't know yet whether, like, what format, how many videos I'll need per book, and so forth. We'll figure it out as we go along. But the goal is to read the following Cosmere novels. I'll read Elantris, then I'll read Mistborn Era 1, all three. These will be a reread, Mistborn. Then I'll read Warbreaker. Then I'll read Mistborn Era 2 in one go. And then I'll read Stormlight Archive to end the whole thing in December once Wind and Fury comes out, which I think is the 6th of December, something like that. Never mind. So that's sort of the rough plan for reading Sanderson. So there will be blocks of Sanderson throughout the year. My point is, I will try to make this a detailed analysis of what Sanderson does, so I'll read other books around that. Some of them will just be, books on fantasy literature, some more on storytelling, things like that. Others will definitely be about Brandon Sanderson's background in the Mormon Church. I'll read the Book of Mormon. It's on my list for very soon. I'll read the Book of Mormon, and I already have a selection of books, nonfiction, academic books, on the history of the Church of the Latter-day Saints and their involvement in the mostly American media industry and in connections into politics and how they shape politics or shaped politics and connections to, to white supremacy and the far right in a lot of ways because, it's something that a lot of Christian religions do these days. So I'll read these on the side. So when we read the Elantris book and when we start reading Mistborn and so forth, I can point out where stuff like religion and political ideals that are connected to certain religions, where these come through in these books. Because Sanderson has said so himself, but he can't obviously ignore his religion, which plays a huge part of in his life from these books. So I think it's fair to point these out because, yes, when people talk critically about Sanderson, they're always like, well, he's a Mormon and he does tithe and the Mormons hate gays. And yes, that is true. All of that is true. But I think that's just the smallest part of it because the question is always how much do these values enter books? And obviously sometimes subconsciously and so forth. And that's something I'll look into over this year, throughout the year with these books. The other part of that is, of course, the big-ass Sanderstorm video that I talked about and worked on last year that I still haven't started to record, except for the intro, which I've recorded twice now. I need to record a third time, which will be about the way Brandon Sanderson, the media figure, the public figure, does business, the way Dragonsteel does business, the way Sanderson instrumentalizes, and commodifies his fandom in all kinds of ways. And I think that will be a that will be one of those long videos in the same vein as the anti-Semitism video, the first one, and the Arthurian video, because it will involve theory, it'll involve references to stuff. It'll be a bit more complicated, complex, and we'll see if I'll be able to make it a bit more interesting than just me sitting in one chair and rambling for hours and hours. But see, there's a feeling with tackling something like Sanderson that I should probably get it right, and I should not only just get it right from like the actual sources and stuff like that. I'm fairly confident that I have that stuff covered. But with Sanderson, there's always the chance that Sanderson's fans will actually watch that. They get mad at me, and that's sort of where I feel it's important to also not be too easily attacked on production values and shit like that. So I'm trying to figure out ways to make that happen, to make that thing more than just a booktube video, if you know what I mean. So we'll see. It's certainly an ongoing project. I'm excited for it. So that's the overarching thing that may or may not give structure to this channel in 2024. Elantris, then Mistborn, Era 1, then Warbreaker, then Mistborn Era 2, and then the 5 Stormlight Archive novels, possibly including the novellas in between, like Edge Dancer and the other one that I have already forgotten. Never mind. It'll happen, is my point. What else will happen in 2023? I do mean, of course, 2024. See, time is complicated. Well, I'll do monthly live streams, and I thought about that. Let's talk about the live streams for a moment, and then we might almost be done. So here's how this will work. I want to do the monthly live streams. I had guests on 2 of them last year. One was Sarah from Voyage Through Worlds, and one was my good friend Liam from Liam's Lyceum, who is about to pass by this channel in subscriber numbers. He has already passed me in videos. So go subscribe to Liam if you haven't yet. Although I suspect we have a very, very high overlap in viewers and subscribers. Anyway, my point is I want to try to do more of that. Remember when I said that I didn't do a lot of collabs last year? Well, here's the thing. I wasn't asked for more than, like, there's one person who has asked me for collabs. Two people that have asked me for collabs. One was Angela over at Do Unicorns Read, and I really enjoyed the conversations we had about Perdita Street Station. The other one was Britton over from Some Okie Dude, and I really enjoyed the conversations we had there as well. But here's the thing. Larger booktubers, fantasy booktubers and so forth, they don't ask me. Now, there's 2 options here. One is they expect me to contact them and ask if we could do something together. And I'm not doing that because I feel strongly that there's a power dynamic there. If I contact someone who has 20,000 subscribers and I have 1,200 right now, it feels like I'm begging for attention. I don't do that. So that may be the one option. The other one is that some of these, and I've certainly had collaborations with some of these before, don't want to do collabs with me because I'm me. I'm a bit of a dickhead. I'm aware of that. I can be abrasive. I can be angry. I can be political, and I'm a bit of a dickhead. So maybe the older and more refined and classy side of fantasy booktube just doesn't want to have anything to do with me. Which is also fine, I guess. I have to live with that. I can't change it for sure. I have the suspicion that at least with some booktubers that's the case. I can't look into their heads. I just don't know that, certain things have not happened, even though I was potentially asked to do something and I agreed, and then nothing came of it, and that wasn't for me. My point is, fuck that, it's over. If you're a larger booktuber and you want to talk to me, you know how to reach me. That's that. The other side is, of course, there's other booktubers, and I thought about that. And while me being angry or disappointed or whatever does not actually do anything good, I figured I can do better. So here's the thing. I'll try to ask booktubers that I find interesting to join me for these monthly live streams for conversations. They are always invited and I'll try to figure out how to do this in a good way. See, Booktube is always full of smaller cliques that are constantly talking to each other, collabing with each other. They may be friends, they may just be very good colleagues. I don't know, because I'm a very antisocial person. But it feels like there's groups that are constantly talking to each other and hanging out on each other's streams, collabs, and so forth. I want to break up that a bit. So I'll invite booktubers that I find interesting. Sometimes they may just have like 100, 150 subscribers or whatever. If I think they are really cool people, if I personally enjoy their content, no matter whether they're part of the usual Discord servers, part of the usual booktubers fandoms or not, I'll just ask them on. We'll try to introduce smaller people, smaller channels to my small audience, and spread that attention around. Make sure that y'all get to see someone else than just the usual 5 channels that everyone is subscribed to. That's sort of the idea here. Now, there's 2 ways we can do that. One of them is that maybe you found a favorite booktuber that no one except for you is actually watching, that has, I don't know, 100 subscribers or 500 subscribers or whatever. And if you think that it would be a interesting conversation and we might fit together for like a conversation, whatever, then let me know. Either here in the comments or send me a message on Discord or whatever. And I'll try to figure it out. I'll contact them. I ask them if they want to join me for a conversation, and we'll do that. It's not like Dear Dr. Fantasy or Talking with Nuts, which are great series. Don't get me wrong. My goal here is to intentionally break the sort of circles that a lot of the epic fantasy or more adult side of fantasy booktube has sort of built, and to potentially look into other directions. So I'll try to do that. I'll try to have booktubers that are not like me, that are not white male middle class dudes in middle-aged dudes all the time. So obviously there's some here that I will definitely ask on. I'll always ask Liam back on, and definitely I'll get Britain on for a conversation sooner or later. But I want to break these molds and be better than just be better. That's sort of the goal for these. The other side is I'll try to do more conversations with authors if possible. I had a lot of fun talking to Nicola Griffith, and there's certainly a number of authors I would love to have on for one of these freewheeling, free-form chats where we talk about their work in general, their approach to writing. I don't know how to go about that. There's certainly a level of anxiety, and I'm always scared and shy to talk to authors. I had tried to overcome that. We'll see how that works. And there's certainly very specific authors that I want to talk to, because I feel they have interesting things to say. We'll see how that goes. I'll announce these when I have them, but it's certainly something I want to do again, and possibly live again, because I think it's a cool thing if you can watch live and jump into the conversation and have questions of your own. I think that's something I want to do more of. So that's that. What about ongoing video series, read-alongs that I have, and what about those? Well, basically, there's 2 or 3. I don't know. Discworld. Discworld's almost over. We'll be talking about I Shall Wear Midnight tomorrow, or well, by the time this video is out. So that one's out, and then there's only like 3 left. So Discworld will come to an end this year, which makes me sad. In a lot of ways. There is the ongoing culture read-along, and this one will chug along. Maybe it'll speed up. We will see. Next up there is use of weapons, and then we'll just do, I'll try to do one every, I don't know, month or every other month or something like that. And in theory, I should return to Black Company. There's in theory, a Black Company read-along going on the Unabridged Burnett Discord, but it has fizzled out. I'm aware of the fact that I'm still lacking 2 Black Company videos on this channel, and I'll try to make one for Water Sleeps and one for Soldiers Live this year, because they deserve them, and they're great books. So that will happen. Will Sunday School continue? I hope so. Next up there would be a song for Arbonne, and I'll try to do that sooner or later. Yeah, I'll just take these as they happen. that leaves me with new books. There will be a separate video very soon where I talk about, where I'll just give you the thing you've always asked for, a list of books. In this case, it'll be a list of books that come out in 2024, and you may have heard of some of them, you may not have heard of all of them, and I'll just give these books, I'll just give you the list of books, and these are books that I will read. Now, read them as close to publication date as possible. And if any of you feel like reading along or buddy reading or whatever, yeah, you now know which books I'll read in 2024 for sure, and you know when I'll read them, close to publication date. If you want to, talk about it with me, just message me. I think that's the easiest way to do that because I'm really bad at structuring anything. That's just my offer. That's how that will work. And beyond that, I'm sure I'll find books to read and stuff to be annoyed about. I've always said that this was a year of transition. I think it was. I feel like my channel is slowly leaving booktube. I don't do reviews. I don't do TBRs anymore. Well, I've never done TBRs. I don't do book hauls. I don't do unhauls. I don't do any of these things. And the longer I watch parts of booktube, the more frustrated I get with it. And the less I see what I'm doing in it. 2023 was a year in which I really, really found my love of reading academic texts again. Obviously, I've done that before, but it really gave me a lot of enjoyment, appreciation, and so forth last year. So I really will do more of that, and I want to make this channel more analytical, more critical in a lot of ways. A place where we talk about books because books have meaning and not just because books have cool characters and cool magic systems. That's sort of the goal for this. And if you want to call this booktube, then I guess you can. But I feel I'm slowly moving out of that sphere into something weird, which obviously won't help with channel growth, which is why the goal is 1,500 subscribers at the end of the year. I may reach that if we're lucky. But it's just one of these things where I constantly struggle with fitting in, as we all do in a lot of ways. And yeah, this is just where we are. So to sum it all up, 2023 brought you 2 long-ass videos and me realizing that I'm a terrible person. It also gave me a bunch of really fun live streams with y'all and a great conversation with Nicola Griffith. 2024 will hopefully bring us more of the same, including a lot of Brandon Sanderson videos and conversations. And yeah, that's all of that. My life continues, which is good, I suspect. And I have very little else to say. Just one final thing, and that's thank you. Thank you all very, very much for sticking with me, for watching, for commenting, for hanging out in different Discords. All of these things they mean a lot to me. I'm oftentimes really bad at, reacting to people, answering, replying to comments, replying to messages. I have so many unread messages in different messengers and whatnot. It's a pain. I'm not the best of people mentally and at the moment, and I don't know how and when that will change. I'm certainly trying, but it's certainly happening. But having you guys here means a lot. And earlier last year, when I was in need of financial help, you came through in an amazing way, which is why we're doing the culture thing now. And I once again want to thank you all for doing that. It really, really meant a lot to me. Beyond just the money, which obviously help, but just knowing that there are people that care means a lot. But I can't thank you enough for that. So I'll try to be the best I can, and I hope you'll get something out of it. And I guess with all of that, we'll get through 2024 in some way or another. And to that, I'll say once again, thanks and cheers.